No room in the inn. Are you kidding me? When the big guy, Caesar, required everyone to return to their hometown to be recorded in a census, Joseph heads to Bethlehem. That's his ancestral hometown from Nazareth. Okay, so let's say he hasn't lived there, his whole life, or maybe ever at all. Because, families move around and stuff for jobs and whatnot. But wouldn't there be some relative there, somebody that would have welcomed them in? Now, as you know, my hometown is San Jose. It's almost 1 million people in San Jose. I have a house there. I'm grateful for that house. But if I didn't have that house, I can tell you there are at least 2 homes in that city of relatives that even if it's crowded and it's a big holiday season, that I could go at least crash on their floor, right? You too probably in this town would know someone that you could go to, and that's not even counting the friends that we have there. In fact, my ancestral hometown is Decorah, Iowa, and I went back there in 2011. That's where my great-grandparents first went when they came from Norway. And I went back there and had a lunch meeting with a whole bunch of my relatives, and they would have taken me in and had spent the night. So there was no one in all of Bethlehem that he's related to that couldn't have invited them to come in? I think the excuse I've always been taught is that all the relatives were in town for the census, so there was really no room, right? It was just a very crowded place. But some early language historians point out that there wouldn't have been just one single day for that census. So people would have had some time. There would have been some overrun, some time when people would have come and they would have gone, and some more would have been. It wasn't like it was all one particular day. So maybe the shift of emphasis should be away from the translation of no room for them in the inn to there was no place found for them. Then in other words, it's not about there not being enough space for lodging, but it becomes more about there's not enough hospitality for Joseph in his hometown or for Mary, his fiancée, who was expecting a child. So this all got me to thinking. Let's talk about hospitality for a moment. Joseph and Mary were, young. They were poor. They were pregnant. And they were still not married. Young, poor, pregnant, unmarried. Today, who's going to be the most hospitable to a couple in that situation? Let's think about some people that will be hospitable for them. Toys R Us, Walmart, maternity catalogs, Budweiser beer. Hey, if you turn on a football game today, you're going to see a lot of young people drinking beer, right? They don't care. The beer company doesn't care whether this is a poor couple or not. It is Walmart or Toys R Us. And all that hospitality would be shown just to make some money off the young, poor, pregnant, and unmarried couple. Now, let's not forget also who wants this couple today. The church. Oh yeah. They're seen as our future. We don't seem to care whether they're married or not, though we do very much. It doesn't matter whether their car is old. They're young. The baby coming means we'll have to dust out the nursery. Yay, new life, we're alive. Praise God. Well, the people of Bethlehem in Jesus' day, you know what they saw in this couple? They saw scandal. And I'm quite sure they didn't approve of this pregnant unmarried couple. It was against their religious beliefs. It was against their standards. It wouldn't hosting them be, in a sense, kind of an endorsement of them? So they thought. In their minds, they had nothing to gain by helping such a couple and everything to lose. Here's why I find it kind of fascinating. That of all the ways that God could have done this, all the ways that he could have done it, he would decide to become a human through a poor, young, unmarried couple. And he would do it in such a way that it would almost be a stumbling block to the very people who thought they were his followers. Are you with me? These followers thought they had God figured out. See, pregnancy comes after marriage, not before. Sex comes after marriage, not before. Yes, that's what the Bible teaches. And that was still true with Joseph and Mary. But that's not the way it looked. What the Bethlehem folks needed to do was put themselves in the sandals of Joseph and Mary. But maybe they couldn't because they'd never been in such a place before. They had never failed to plan ahead before going on a trip, or they never had to venture far from home. Now, I got to ask you a personal question here. Can you remember a time in your life when it was harder than it is right now for you? Okay, you awake? Did you hear me? Can you remember a time when it was harder for you than it is right now for you? I grew up in the clean middle-class home that I live in now with a little bit of middle-class dignity. But not long after Martha and I were married, we moved to Pasadena, Southern California, to go to seminary. And we lived in this tiny one-bedroom apartment, and we prayed our hearts out for that apartment because we had 2 old bicycles and our stuff in a U-Haul, and we were riding around Pasadena looking for an apartment, and we couldn't find one until we went to the Pasadena Presbyterian Church secretary, and she pulled out a little card and she said, "Oh, somebody's looking for tenants here, and you might give them a call." And we prayed, and they said, "Yes, we will take you." That's good. That roach-infested one-bedroom apartment was so bad, the roaches, you could put leashes on them and take them for a walk. I kid you not, they were a poor man's pet. Up above us on the second floor were drug dealers who would rip off your apartment when you were gone. It was bad. It was a bad situation. And out front, there was asphalt, not grass. It was so that we could park our car next to our front door so we could hear when someone was breaking into it. That was the kind of apartment we got, but we were grateful for it because that sure beat living on the street, I'll tell you that much. So basically, all we wanted was a little lawn to sit on so we could have a little picnic in the beautiful Southern California sunshine. And so we took a walk and we found a cult church, not a Christian church, a cult church, something that doesn't believe in Jesus Christ as the Savior. But you know what they had? They had this beautiful green lawn. Oh, it was nice. It was beautiful. And it said, come, enjoy your picnic right here. So we sat down, we spread out our things, and we were enjoying this picnic. When someone from the church pulled up in a shiny yellow Corvette and said, "You got to get off. You got to get off this property. This is private property. Get off. Go." This middle-class San Jose boy had never, ever been chased away as if I was a menace to the community. Oh, no. It's been 35 years since that experience. I think about it every day when I walk through our campus and I see people enjoying our lawn and park benches. I saw a preschool group, a bunch of preschoolers and their leader out on the lawn outside my office one day. And so I go out to greet them. And the first thing the lady said, she is Middle Eastern, very broken English, and she says to me, "Oh, you want us to leave? You want us to leave?" No, 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 no. I'm just saying good morning and introduce myself and welcome to the house of the Lord. This is the Lord's place. Welcome to the lawn. Oh, we've been chased out of everywhere that we have gone. There is no grass that we can seem to sit on. They haven't been back, but it was nice to have a little bit of interaction with them. Hospitality is being able to climb down into the hole with another person and saying, "Hey, I know what it's like to be here where you are, and you're not alone." And I can't exactly do that with the homeless. I have lived my entire life avoiding being homeless, and I can't imagine anyone not doing the same thing. I understand temporary homelessness, but not long term. Not saying that they're in sin. I am just saying that it's hard for me to relate. I lived through that Great Recession of 2007. I watched 13 homes within 2 blocks of my house go vacant. I watched people packing up their homes in U-Hauls and whatever in their cars and had nowhere to go. I watched my church lose revenue and offerings by the week as people were losing their jobs and losing their opportunities. It was devastating. And it makes you think after a while, hey, I too could be homeless. And any one of us could be. But still it's hard for me to think about that, of how we do it. You know, I've realized just recently that I have spent my life pursuing really 3 things: food on the table, a roof over my head, and medical insurance. Everything else is just fluff besides those things. But sometimes it's just really hard. Last Monday I had breakfast in our Tri-Cities free breakfast program with a family of 5. This is an incredible story. They're living in this GMC SUV. They're Christians, they go to church, they have their Bibles, they know the Lord and so forth. They're having a really hard time. And the husband works part-time at night for FedEx. He can't drive at night, so the wife drives the SUV to the FedEx parking lot. The family, they have 2 boys, a 5th and 6th grade, and then an older child from previous relationship that's like 19 or so, and he works at night at Amazon. And the younger boys are homeschooled in the library or the SUV. And they have this one little smartphone, and for all of them. And they go and when they have an evening off together, they go and park near a Starbucks or somewhere where there's free Wi-Fi. And they get a movie on the little tiny phone. And I said, well, all 5 of you watch that? Yes, we put it on the dashboard. Well, how do you hear it? We turn it up loud. And we can watch movies on that thing. Wow. And then once or twice a week, they put their money together and they can rent a motel room where they can get a shower and feel better and so forth. It's a hard life. And I'd have to say the 2 elementary school boys were some of the best-mannered boys that I have ever met. For them, homelessness, I suspect, is probably temporary. If they keep working at it, they'll get out of it. When God became a man, I think he wanted to identify completely with us. And on his own, he chose to be born to a poor young couple, and he didn't cover up the fact that she would be pregnant with his son. So God could have chosen one of a number of easier ways to have done it. But God wants to identify with us, with each situation that's out there. Now, I can't identify fully with the homeless. But as you know, this year I wanted to identify with the masses of people living in our valley who, for whatever reason, don't have a car. And so, as most of you know, on a whim, I sold my car out on the street out here and had to figure out a way to get home. Found out I could ride the bus, and it was okay. So for 6 months, I rode the bus here and back to San Jose. And it only ended when our son gave us back our beat-up old 2001 Honda Civic that we had given to him in high school. Now that car looks like a struggling college student's car, but I have learned that's another whole identity to take on as well. But for those 6 months that I was on the bus, it was an awakening experience of being, first of all, dependent on others, but then also being around people that I normally wouldn't have an opportunity to be around. And I learned there's a whole bus language to learn, and I started to learn that. And I'd say it was a good experience for me, and I may do it again, although driving the old Honda is actually cheaper because we own the car than it is to ride the bus. But in order to show hospitality, real hospitality in a sense, you have to open yourself up and remember a time when you were a stranger, or you were a visitor, or you were a traveler, and you didn't have anything under your control. We have two friends who traveled around France and Europe I think it was this fall for a son's wedding in Spain. And they had some mix-up on the train, and they got off the train at about, I think it was midnight in Paris. Here they were, an older couple, not in real great health, couldn't really walk a whole lot, and they had no hotel reservations. Wow. And there was nowhere to go. And they are in Paris, nowhere to go. There was a Holiday Inn, and they walked into the Holiday Inn. They said, "Do you have a room?" And they said, "No, we don't have a room." They had sofas in kind of the waiting area, the lobby, and they said, "Can we please sit in the lobby at least until daylight, until we can go move on and find a room?" And the manager was so kind as to let them sit there in the lobby until he said, "You can sit here until 6 o'clock. And then at 6 o'clock in the morning, he comes with his stick and he wakes them up and he moves them on. Now, that experience, what that does is it makes you really identify with people who don't have as much. What do you think it's like to be a newcomer to America and to walk into this room right here? Would you think it'd be scary? Will they make me say something? Will I put my foot in my mouth? That's the first thing I think of when I walk into a strange place. I can't think on my feet. They're going to ask me something and I'm going to say the wrong thing. Think about your experience of walking into a new church or walking into a social gathering of your spouse's coworkers. That's like the worst to me. She knows everybody, but I know no one in there. And what am I going to say? Think about how it feels. So I connect my inner self, and I remember that feeling I had when I was a stranger. I walk down that same road, and through my eyes, I see from the other person's perspectives. But rarely do we let that happen, because we run from our own mistakes, our own flawed humanity, instead of facing up to them. And it keeps us from ever getting to the place where someone shares with us their real brokenness. Like, what are you going through today? If we could sit down across a table, what would you tell me that you're really going through? Like, people will open up and say, "I'm pregnant and not married, Pastor. Am I welcome there?" Or I don't have anywhere to stay. Or I don't know what to do. Or I had a miscarriage or an abortion and I feel really sad and I feel really confused about what happened. Or I think my spouse is cheating on me. Or I'm thinking about getting a divorce. Or my child has been acting out at school. Or my child just told me she's a lesbian. I am angry and I'm having thoughts that I'm a bad parent. I'm broke and I don't have money to pay my bills. I don't know how to improve financially. I don't know what to do. They got to tell you that in church? Oh, no. You're going to look good. You're going to have it together. You're going to come and you're going to clean up and all of that. Because here's the surface response of the innkeeper. We try to make things better. Hey, there's a stable out back. Go take it back there. Or we say really stupid things like, well, maybe you can try having another child. Or someday you'll meet the right person. Or we all make mistakes as a parent, just the other day, and then we go on babbling about our situation when the real problem is standing right in front of us and we're not listening. And that's what innkeepers do, right? We try to find some place to stick the problem out back or out of sight so we can go on living our lives and not really have to deal with the problem someone else is going through. When what we need to be saying is, you know what? Listen to me here. This is what we need to be saying. I am really glad that you're here today. I am really glad that you came. What can I do for you? And then sit down and listen to them. I've heard stories about churches. This is off track a little bit, but I've heard stories of churches where people will walk in and it'll be their seat right there, and they'll ask someone to move from their seat. Has that ever happened to you in a church? I can't imagine, because I've been standing up here for so many years. Can you imagine that? Somebody asking you to move because you were in their seat? It's crazy. But try to identify with someone who's new coming in. And don't try to stick the problem out back. You know, what we need to do is say this. I'm so glad that you're here. And I really don't have the answer to the problems you just told me about. But I do know someone who does. And you know who that person is? It's Jesus Christ. And we say that we get to introduce our hurting people to Jesus and lead them to a relationship with Him. So, this is my Christmas message to you. Is there no room in the inn? Or is it we're not making room for Him? So try to see from the perspective of someone who has less than we have, from their perspective. And if you get an opportunity this season to offer up Jesus Christ to them, say, I know someone who can help you. And maybe they know Jesus Christ, or maybe they already do, and maybe you can pray with them. That is a great gift that you can offer them.